Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Trust and Believe. You know what? Sometimes I love when you get to reconnect. Have you ever reconnected with people that you may not have spoken to in a while, or may have impacted your life, or maybe have helped you impact other people's lives? And I mean, we all have those friends where you're like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you in a long time, but we get back together and it's like nothing ever changed. And I just love that today is going to be that. We are going to enhance your ability to trust and believe in something that goes beyond the fitness and something that actually helps with your fitness, and that is your mental fitness. This is something that I talk about all the time, and we are here with the hosts of the Fit Mess podcast, Mr. Zach and Jeremy. They've been on the show before. I still wanted to give them an introduction because they're awesome and amazing. They feel like my brothers that I've never met before. Wow. Zach Tucker is a wellness enthusiast and certified yoga and insanity instructor who is dedicated to helping people achieve their wellness goals. He believes that there is no one-size-fits-all approach to wellness and is passionate about sharing his personal journey and the tools that have helped him. Jeremy Grader has spent the past decade experimenting with various wellness tools to improve his mental health and lose 70 pounds. He has a background in broadcasting and podcasting spanning 2 decades and is now a certified REBT mindset life coach. Together, they are the founders and hosts of the Fit Mess podcast. For nearly a decade, they have pushed themselves to learn more about their own physical, emotional, and mental health. This has created a passion for using their acquired knowledge to help others. As the host of the Fitness podcast since 2017, they have had the opportunity to speak to a wide range of guests, including yours truly.
That's right. That's right.
Right, including some of the biggest names in the health and wellness industry. I will not pat myself on the back. I just, you know what I'm saying. No, I'm kidding.
You might be the top of the list.
Right.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? We only strive for the best around here.
Somebody say hell yeah!
What's up?
He's better than Oprah. Come on, y'all.
This is Shaun T, and it's time to trust and believe.
Guys, welcome back to the show.
Dude, thank you so much. It is such a thrill and honor to be here again. I can't believe we're doing this again. I love it. Thank you, man.
Thank you so much for having us.
First of all, like, you know, a lot of times when I have guests on the show, it's more of me interviewing them, but I feel like this is that one episode that we can just chat it up because we are all aligned on so many different levels. But I will start off with a question or just like a topic because I don't want to ask each individual ones of your questions. So let's talk about our transition from physical health being, you know, the pillar of strength to how we kind of like, you know, melded our lives into being like, you know what? Mental health is actually the driving force behind the movement and the longevity of what we're doing.
I mean, just for my experience, I'm going to give you a lot of credit for that because it wasn't until I did your, I believe Transform 20 was the first one that I did and completed. First, you know, one of those programs I've ever completed. But it was the first time that I really connected with a trainer beyond, you know, jump this high, lift that much, run over there. Like you taught me how to dig deep. It's, you know, one of your things, but it taught me how to go inside and find that pain and use it to push me forward and to process it. Right. Cause so many times it just lingers inside. It rattles around in your head and it turns into all the stories and the terrible things you say about yourself and all the ways you talk down to yourself. And when you can get to the root of that, we can get to that feeling, the emotion, and move it through lifting heavy things and throwing heavy things and running and sweating it out. Man, the relief. It's been months since I have had a voice in my head that said, you suck, you're not good enough. I can't believe you did that again. Like the feeling still comes up, but through using physical movement, I have put that voice away. It doesn't exist in my head anymore. And it was through working with you, you know, and your online programs. That's why that's what opened the door for me, was figuring out that this isn't just about, you know, get ripped, bro. This is about so much more than that.
Thanks. You know, it's so funny because currently I'm training to do a physique competition, which is based on obviously like your physique. It's more of an art to me personally. But every day in the gym, I'm like lifting these weights, guys. I'm like, what is happening? And most of the time, I now go into my workouts feeling like I'm about to do insanity. I'm like, this is absolutely outrageous. I'm blessed to be able to actually train with my coach and my trainer 6 days a week. So, I'm not going at this alone, and I'm being guided, which I think is really good it's good for my mental health by way of, I'm constantly learning to be a student and to be guided just because of my life. I am like set a lot of times to be the leader. But with that said, today I was doing this exercise where I'm holding a front raise dumbbell and I'm doing a side raise with the other one. I was like, how am I going to get through this? Because this is terrible. Like if I left it up to my body, I'm like, this is not going to happen. So then I actually closed my eyes and I just was just like, these are the things you need to focus on, and motivating myself from within. Whereas before, when I used to run track and I'm on my 7th 400, with a minute and 30-second rest in between, I'm like, I don't even want to do this, so you change that self-talk, and it just like, it really changes everything.
Yeah. I'm so curious about your bodybuilding routine. I've been following that lately. I'm curious how that's affected your training philosophy. I mean, I have to imagine it's more lifting maybe than you did in the past, where so much of your programs are very like high energy, a lot of running, a lot of jumping, that kind of stuff. Has that changed for you through this process?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a completely for the month of April. Once I finished filming my most recent workouts, which is T25 Delta and B25, I literally just started cardio on Saturday. So it was a month where I did not do a lick of cardio, which for people out there who live and breathe and think that, they feel like if they don't do cardiovascular exercise, their weight is going to blow up and all this stuff. And it wasn't necessarily hard for me to do, but I just kind of was like staying in a moment, and just the science behind what happens to your body when you're pushing weight. I will say I did that because it's part of my preparation, right? I'm telling people you should do cardiovascular exercise 30 minutes at least 3 to 5 times a week if you want, for cardiovascular health. Like, overall health, very important. But it was a good eye opener for me because I'm just like, I'm just as strong. I'm staying fit. I'm actually getting leaner. I'm getting more muscular. And then when I did do my first bout of cardio, I didn't lose anything because I'm still training hard. But that's just kind of like a Cliff Note version of an example of changing over to doing something different. I can carry the same mindset, but it also changes and helps you grow in areas of doubt where you otherwise would have, just like the science behind fitness. Like if you turn on, I mean, now my Instagram algorithm brings me to people who lift weights a lot, but before it's like you turn it on, everybody's doing cardio. And so just the combination has been great. I mean, Zach, what about you? I mean, I want to know how your transition has been from that body to that mind.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. I know when I first started working out, like at one point in my life, I was like almost 300 pounds, and it was very physical. Like it was just slogging through and getting it done. And like Jeremy, like you were part of it. That's where I found insanity. But for me now, like there's kind of two aspects, like that physical part of it. You mentioned the mindset of getting through it, right? I take that with me. Like when I'm in the gym lifting heavy things or doing something that's really hard, like I just tell myself, look, you can get through this. And then this is practice for all those other things in your life that are really hard too. Like, dealing with my anxiety, dealing with people I don't like, dealing with all the things that life hits me with, right? This is just practice. And, your body's going to look better. That's one aspect to it. But I've said so many times to Jeremy and to everyone on the show, I don't think I realized how important physical movement was as the foundation of my mental health. So now, like when I'm not moving my body, when I'm not creating the chemicals in my brain, when I'm not having that confidence, that success, that, got something done today, that win, my mental health actually goes down significantly. And now I go to the gym, I do the physical things because, I want my body to look good. But more importantly, it's the fuel and it's the foundation for my mental health. It makes all of those other battles that I have with my anxiety, my depression, my self-worth, my confidence, my imposter syndrome, like all of that stuff is so much easier because I go lift heavy things for an hour every morning.
I love that. So what do you guys feel about talk therapy? Because the reason why I say that is I know so many people, even people who hear about it or I talk about it with often, it's like one of those things where people hear about talk therapy, they're with it, but they don't really take the time to do it. Because me personally, and I'm not judging your opinion, but me personally, like that enhances it all because it's my time to basically get everything out, to hear myself speak, to not be judged. And full disclosure, I just believe that men have a much tougher time with seeking that out and being okay with it. So where are you guys at with that?
Full disclosure, I had to cancel my appointment with my therapist to be here right now. So.
Well, I'll be your therapist for the next 40 minutes. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I am a huge advocate for it. I think it is critical, especially for men, because there isn't a space for men to do this. I shouldn't say there isn't. Men don't perceive the space, and it's not always welcome for men to have feelings and to share them with people. So if there is a place where you can go in and someone literally just holds up a mirror and tells you what they hear when you speak, it helps you hear it differently. It helps you get it out. For me, one of the most transformative pieces of therapy that I've experienced is, you start typically going weekly or a few times a week. And as things kind of calm down, you get to a good space. Maybe you're going once a month, that sort of thing. My favorite part is when I see on the calendar, oh, I got to talk to my therapist in a few days. What am I going to talk to him about? So before I even walk in the door, it's a reminder to do the work, right? Where do I need to dig deep? What's going on? What's inside me that I'm going to walk in? So I don't waste his time, don't waste my time. I'm going to go to all this effort. And so you already start the wheels turning and you start thinking about, oh, is that even a problem? Is that still bugging me? Not really. I don't need to bring that. You can just be done with it, move it on. So I just think, I think Zach says this all the time. My wife says this all the time. We wish that when you were born, you were assigned a therapist that just walked you through life and had that space for you to vent those feelings and to get that stuff out and to be able to just sort of stay invested in the work to keep your head right.
Now this is going to sound funny or what it might sound whatever way, but you guys know me. So you get my humor and you get where I'm coming from. So you guys are heterosexual males, right? Like both of you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a gay guy who grew up gay. Like, I've had these, I don't want to say like us gay guys are more emotional, but we went through a lot of stuff when we were younger. And I find that a lot of gay men have a much easier time, like, oh, I'm going to therapy, or they talk about things a little more. And then like a lot of my straight guy friends are like, they like kind of suppress it. Was there ever a time where you were like, oh, I'm not going to therapy, I don't need that? Or were you always open to it? I need the real lowdown.
Yeah.
Either one of you.
Oh yeah. No, there was probably the first 20 years of my life, right? I mean, my dad raised me to be the, traditional guy with big air quotes there of, you don't talk about your emotions, you don't feel your emotions. If, you cut your arm off, you get up and rub some dirt on it and keep going, no crying. That's what I grew up with. And that's what I believed all the way up into my 20s. For me, I've now recognized that, even just as a guy, I'm a highly sensitive guy. Like I feel my feelings very, very deeply. And I always kind of felt like I was broken, like I was different than everyone else because of all of those feelings that I had. Now I just realize I'm really highly sensitive. So it took me, I don't know, it must have taken me probably 5 years of like, just inching a little bit further and disclosing a little bit more, like two people, two therapists, to really get comfortable with it. But man, when the dam broke and I realized that I could just let all this gush out and people would listen. And when I talk about, what I'm vulnerable on and talk about my feelings and my emotions and I'm struggling, the people I need show up and they help me. It was a long, hard road to get to that point, But yeah, I was raised like that. That was, you don't talk about it. Oh, you feel bad? Oh, you want to talk about being loved? Nope, you don't talk about either of them. You don't talk about the good ones either. So it was a difficult road.
The fact that it's very generational too is also generational, cultural. I was even talking about, and just keeping it real, I was even talking about just being a sexual abuse survivor, and how even in some Black communities, some church communities, like, people know that someone in the family was an abuser and they pray it away, and they don't, they, like, it's like we have to protect our family, like we handle it, and not understanding the detriment that it does to the victim of that. And so it's just like this generational curse that I think that happens, that one that you said is like, oh, like, guys have to be X, Y, and Z. You have to be strong, rub dirt on it, don't cry. I use the word ridiculous, but I think that it's part of what's wrong with society. And also, what's interesting, I had this thought when you were talking. Why is it that people can talk about other people, talk about other people's problems, like the endorphins release with, like, the gossip about other people, but they have a really hard time going into a room to talk all of that not so good feeling stuff about themselves? You know what I'm saying?
Self-reflection is terribly painful, right? I mean, how much stuff do we bury deep down? So it's so much easier to talk about somebody else's stuff than to face your own. What's the Taylor Swift line? She says something about I can stare directly in the sun, but never directly in the mirror, or something like that. Like, that line was so
Not
powerful.
Taylor
It's like,
Swift.
that's so true.
What? Let me find out you quoting Taylor Swift.
I got two
Listen,
daughters,
oh,
man. How do I not quote Taylor Swift?
Oh,
don't blame
I've
it on
got
the daughters. Don't even blame it on the daughters. You were the first one to go get those tickets. Don't even try.
Oh,
He did.
I got the tickets. I'm going in 16 days with my daughter.
Wait, do either of you have sons, or you just have daughters?
Just daughter.
But funny thing about what you're talking about that sort of rub some dirt on it mentality, and how deeply ingrained in us this is. I had this experience recently that blew my mind. I have two daughters, 12 and almost 8 years old. And, I try to give them all the space in the world when they get emotional, and all of the things. We were out with some friends, and one of them had a young son about their age. We're out hiking on a trail, and he, like, fell or scraped his knee or some little thing, but it just became this big emotional thing, right? This big, like, sort of outburst. And in the moment, it was so weird. I couldn't believe I'm Mr. Sensitive guy. Like, I have in touch with my feelings, making space and helping people with their feelings. This little boy is crying, and I can't help but think, come on, kid, it's just a scrape. Like, and the voice was there. And after like 3 or 4 thoughts of, like, what is the big deal? I finally was like, oh, that's not me. That's generations of programming. That's like, it was automatic. And I realized, if that was my daughter, I'd be down on one knee, like, helping her, like, coaching her through the feelings and all the things.
Right.
But because he was a little boy, I felt this hard wiring of, come on, kid, we're just going for a walk. What's the big deal?
Yeah.
And I'm like, as sensitive as they come. So imagine the people that aren't, right? Imagine the people that aren't in touch with their feelings, don't want to deal with this stuff, don't want to process this stuff. It's just built in, and you have to do some hard, just, unpacking to rip that stuff out and stop it. So I hope it's conversations like this that are helping move the needle on getting away from that kind of thinking. But man, it is just such a part of our DNA that is really hard to deny.
I think it was you, Jeremy, that wrote the article, why you should give zero and embrace me time for better mental health. Wasn't that you, Jeremy?
That was me. Yeah.
Because it's like, I think that, like, to your point, we talk about this generational, like, way of programming, but we care so much about what other people think that we literally are in some ways programmed to put ourselves last. So tell me about, what was the catalyst behind that article that you wrote? And we'll link it so people can read it, because it's actually really straight up.
Pick a day, pick a moment when I've pushed myself to my limit. This happened last night. My daughter had her first cross country event. So it was this big thing. We're all standing out in the heat all day. We're tired. It's taking hours. I hadn't eaten yet all day, so I started getting grumpy, but was trying to be the good dad, be there, support, all that stuff. We go out to dinner, and now she's tired, so she's melting down every 5 minutes at the table. And then we come home, and then it's still, some electronic thing wasn't working. So dad had to fix that. Dad had to do this. Dad had to do that. I am so bad at recognizing it. But the feeling started swelling of, when do I get a minute? When can I just, whether it's zoning out on my phone, responding to email, like there's stuff I got to do for me. Everyone needs me right now. And so my older daughter accidentally locks the door to the bathroom with my younger daughter in the bathtub. And she's in there for like 12 seconds.
Oh.
And my wife hears the lock. And she's like, "Are you okay in there?" And she didn't respond. And in my mind, I'm like, it's been 10 seconds. What? I'm just going to go unlock the door. It's going to be fine. But she's like yelling at her, like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I was just like, will you just calm down? She's fine. It's been 10 seconds. And she was just like, "How dare you, you monster. You can't talk to me like that." And she was totally right. But what came out of me, that like, just calm down, outburst, was the result of not going, "Guys, I need a minute. I'm going to go just somewhere else." Because I'm so bad at recognizing it until I blow up, do something stupid, and then have to eat crow and make up for it. So it's just stuff like that. You have to be so aware of where you're at mentally, emotionally, especially when you're dealing with family or just other people around. When you're just immersed in it and it becomes too much, you got to recognize it sooner and just build that muscle, develop the ability to say, "I need a minute. Can I please take a break?"
I'm happy you can normalize that for yourself, because I was even talking to friends and I was just like, they're like, "Oh, do you feel old now? Do you feel 45? And I'm just always like, the last few days, I'm like, physically, yeah, maybe a little bit. I can't really do insanity like I did before, but mostly it's the maturity of my mental space where I'm like, if I don't want to do something, I'm not doing that. It doesn't mean I'm a horrible person, because I'm just not doing it. And and I'm definitely really good at, I'm not patting myself on the back because it took me a while to get here, but I'm very good at even telling my kids, they're 5. And I was thinking this morning, I'm like, if someone says "Papa" one more time in the span of 43 seconds, I'm like, how do you say "Papa" 90 times? And I answer 86 of those questions in 45 seconds. And then I was just like, I just pulled them over. I was like, "Hey guys, like, let's change it." I was like, "Outside looks really great. Why don't you go outside?" And they were like, "Okay." Because I was just like, I need a minute. It's like when you're hungry. It's like when you're hangry, and someone's talking to you and you're like, "You know what? Let's curb this until I get some food. Like, can you just like give me that minute?"
And I had the same moment that led up to that, because I was at a point where I was like, okay, I realized I haven't eaten yet today and I'm getting hungry. And so I had to speak up for myself and say, "Guys, I know this could go for another hour. You don't want me here for the next hour. We got to go. Like, I'm done. This is going to get bad for all of us if we don't get out of here and go feed me and feed them." And that moved us, right? It got us going. So it is hard. If you're not used to speaking up for yourself and defending that space for yourself, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to build that in.
I was actually spoke about this on my podcast, the solo trip that I did to Australia. And when you're married, you're like you have a girls trip or you have a boys trip. So I want to ask Zach, like, have you ever literally taken a trip on your own that had nothing to do with business, nothing to do with, like, literally by yourself? You're like, "I'm out." Like, have you ever done that?
Yeah, it's interesting you should say that, because I think a lot of what prompted Jeremy to write that article may have been what I did a few weeks ago. So I travel all the time for work. And whenever I do that, like, if I have to go to Ireland for work, like I spend 3 or 4 days by myself, like in Dublin or whatever city I'm in. I spend time by myself and do that. But what was it? It was about a month ago. I had to go to Miami for work, but instead I went down, I think 5 days early, and went to the Orlando area because my daughter and I love Disney World. We go all the time. We're just there all the time. So I was there in Orlando by myself, kind of looking at some houses, maybe, an investment property, because we're there all the time. Just hanging out in the city, going to dinner by myself, getting a table by myself, eating by myself, just spent all this time by myself. And I love doing those things. But the one thing that caught Jeremy's eye was my schedule freed up on a Sunday. So I had the whole day. So I just went to Disney World by myself. I hit all the parks. I rode all the rides I wanted to ride. I was with kids. Like, I could have been perceived as the weird, creepy guy.
I can see this. Like, I can see this, Sorry, go ahead. I can see it though.
But yeah, no, I spent the whole day at Disney World by myself. I walked, my watch registered about 15 miles, hit all the parks, had a beer, just like enjoyed the whole day by myself at Disney World. So yes, I love doing those things. And I actually will carve time out in my calendar to spend those alone times.
I actually talked to one of my barbers about this. I was like, yeah, I just came back from Australia. And he immediately was like, oh, what did you guys do? And I'm like, no. It's what I did. And he was like, wait a minute, your husband like let you go by yourself? Like, oh my gosh, like that. Like my girl would like freak out. And I'm like, why? Like, why do you think people freak out if you're like, I want to go somewhere by myself? Or I should just ask you, did your wife like look at you sideways, or was she like here for it?
Well, actually, things have changed since the last time we talked. I don't have a wife anymore. We've gone our separate ways. But
well, always to that, I say congratulations, because regardless of whose idea it was, I'm like, a better space is made for you. So
oh yeah, no, that was my idea, and it is a better space, and I am very happy. So but Jeremy actually texted me while I was there, because he saw I posted a picture on Instagram, and Jeremy called me out. He's like, what the hell? You're at Disney World by yourself? What's wrong with you?
Well, that was pure deflection, though, because it's an insecurity of my own that I could never see myself doing that. So I had to bring you down to my level, make you feel shame for doing something that I am not capable of doing.
That honesty about insecurity is everything. Why wouldn't you do it? Would your wife be opposed to you doing that?
Oh, she's constantly telling me to get out of the house. The problem I had, this is like, being real, like my issue is I don't know myself well enough to go, I got 3 days to do whatever I want. I'm going to go X, Y, Z. The panic, the minute, like we were talking about this the other day. If I wake up on a Sunday morning and there's no plans, family's out of town, it's on me. Panic, sweats. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I have this whole day. There's so many things I could do. And then I get nervous about the missed opportunities, the things I'm not going to do. What would be the best use of my time? What are all the amazing things I could do with this free time? And then I just get overwhelmed and shut down and stay home and play Tetris all day. So it just doesn't work out for me where I can just go, these are the things I want to do. I'm just not there yet, right? That's something I'm trying to work on.
Well, that's why you should immerse yourself in the experience. Because I was saying how like even when I went, there were moments throughout the time where I was just like, oh my gosh, I feel like I have to be somewhere. And I'm like, I don't have to be somewhere. I can take a nap. I can go to the gym. I can walk. I don't want to use the word forcing because that sounds really bad. I'm trying to motivate my husband. I'm trying to motivate Scott to do it, because I'm like, I did it. And I'm like, where do you want to go? He's like, oh, I don't know. And he's just like, and I think he listens to my podcast. So I'm sure we're going to have a discussion about this discussion. But I think he is a bit not controlling in like the negative sense of the word of like he's controlling. It's just that he's kind of like you. He's like, oh, I gotta make sure the boys are fine. I gotta make sure the house is fine. I gotta make sure that they take their medicine. And he's just like so regimented like that. I feel like, because even when I did say like maybe you can go here and go here, he's like, oh yeah, I guess I could do some work. And I'm like, I mean, you could if you want to, but no, like leave your hotel and go do something. So maybe you and him should go together.
Problem solved.
Yeah. Moving on, because, Zach, you shared that you are now a single man. But you wrote an article that's called The Art of Saying No, Why Protecting Your Boundaries is Key to a Happier Life. And knowing that you wrote that article and knowing that you're in a different place in your life, I mean, you are the person, at this moment that we can talk to. And there are a lot of people out there who are in a situation where they know it could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be a friendship. And they just have this thing where they're really having a hard time breaking free from that for whatever reason. So what did you experience? And then, what was the catalyst to give you the power to make that dynamic shift and change?
Yeah. Actually, the last 18 months have been very interesting for me because not only did I say no to my marriage, I said no to my job at one point too. So in a 6 month window, I quit my job with nothing back, nothing behind it. I was just like, you know what? This is the wrong place. This is the wrong people. It's toxic. It's not healthy for me. So I put the boundary up and said no to that. And then 6 months later, I said no to my marriage. Um, because it was also toxic. It was unhealthy. It was not a good place for both myself and my ex. Right? We were still friends, but it was unhealthy. But man, if you're not used to saying no, if you're not used to putting that boundary up, there's a lot of guilt and a lot of shame and a lot of negative feelings that go along with saying no, even though at the end of the day, it's like, even if you're just saying no to like not going to a party or not going to something, that freedom, that ability to not have to do that commitment that you just don't want to do, it's so freeing for you. But some of the two bigger ones that I had, Jeremy was my sounding board on far too many times, because even though this was my choice, this was my decision, this was my stance to say no, it was still a loss. It was still something that changed in my life, that made me sad, that made me cry, that made me have to feel these negative feelings of this huge change in my life. And it was pretty painful. Saying no, sometimes in the moment, you're going to get that immediate gratification. Like, I said no. Yes, this is fantastic. I don't have to go to the party. Sometimes you're going to say no and it's going to hurt a little bit. But at the end of the day, fast forward to now, like, again, I say this all the time on our show, I am the happiest, healthiest I've ever been in my entire life. And a lot of that is because I've said no to these things. So like the power of it is amazing, but it can hurt. It really can.
I do know people who are currently in this situation. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Welcome to Shaun T's game show and saying no.
Love it. Let's do it.
Specifically with relationships, how long before you had the conversation of like, this isn't what I want to do or going to work out? Like, how long did you know?
With that, I didn't know it was going to work out?
Yeah.
Within new relationships or with my ex-wife?
Your ex-wife. Because I mean, that's the one that's, I'm assuming, is most painful and has the most, emotion behind it.
Honestly, I stayed in it longer than I should have. I think I knew for about 5 years before I finally ended it.
And what were the things that made you keep going?
So the number one thing was my daughter, right? I wanted her to have both parents. My parents divorced when I was 6 months old and had that life. So I didn't want her to have that. At the same time, like, we didn't fight. We got along okay. I mean, Jeremy knew both of us very, very well. And from all outward appearances, we seemed to be okay. So we were living life okay. And it never got so bad for me that I said I had to cut this. And it took about 5 years for me to realize that low level pain, that low level uncomfortableness, that low level not being okay built up to a really big not being okay. So it took about 5 years from the day I realized this is probably not going to work to the day we ended it.
So knowing that you're a very caring person and obviously you are selfless in a situation that you want to make sure that everyone's okay, having gone through it and looking back, do you feel like, this is a really tough question, but like, would you have still waited that long? Like, if you could go back and do it again, do you think it was the right way? Or are you like, oh, I wish I would have did this earlier? And the reason why I ask that question is because a lot of people do. Now, I'm not advocating for divorce. I'm advocating for happiness. But there are a lot of people that's like, I'm standing for the kids. And I just know that me growing up, I didn't have a father. I had a step monster. And like all of the arguing, they argued, but I could also tell my mom wasn't happy even if they weren't arguing. So I'm like, does your daughter sense that you're happier, or you're like, I made the right decision? It's too late now to say you made the wrong decision, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. So my daughter, I mean, she knew something. Like when we told her, she was like, she was sad and she cried, but then she got over it really, really fast and was like, yeah, no, I think I knew something was up here. Um, and to your first question though, I don't think I would have left sooner, because for those 5 years, even though I kind of knew it was over, I wanted to make sure I did everything I could possibly do to salvage the situation. Now, that took me 5 years to do everything I could possibly do. But once I realized there's nothing else I can do, there's nothing else I can change, there's no help we can get, there's no other thing that we can do to salvage this. And that's when I was like, okay, it's over. And we need to walk away. So I wouldn't have changed the timeline, just because, again, I think I owe it to myself, I owe it to her, I owe it to my daughter, I owe it to the larger family, because, like, her side of the family is, great people and I love them all. But I owed it to all of us to, like, give it a shot and try and make it work. Like, it's so easy to walk away from those situations when they get tough and hard. It's even harder to actually do the work to try and make it work.
I'm really enjoying the fact that we're talking about stuff beyond fitness, regardless of whether you're a male or a female. It's not often that I think the majority of people get to have conversations like this and, like, hear it from outside perspective. I did want to bring up one other thing before I switch to something a little more lighter, but I think this is important. I just want to talk about boundaries. You've been through that. And then also, I just think that, like, a lot of people don't know how to decide, okay, this is enough for me. You got a divorce in a way of, you're like, I'm gonna give it my all, whatever. But there's also, like, some people who their boundaries are completely being stepped over. And how do you guys deal with boundaries? Even Jeremy, I love how you're very honest. Like, yeah, like, I was a monster by saying, my daughter's gonna be okay in the bathroom for 10 seconds. Like, how do you guys manage, like, the boundary situation with people?
There's a couple stories I can tell. One was from this week where, I was dealing with a client who was really upset, didn't like the way that, business was being run. I went into it trying to be the hero, trying to save the relationship, not offer the refund, to do all the things. And the cost of that was taking his verbal abuse for nearly an hour, just screaming horrible obscenities at me at the phone. Like, I tried to own every part of my responsibility and he just unloaded on me. And it took me 2.5 days to get over that, like, just the abuse that I took from this person. So the lesson learned was, no amount of money, no corporate relationship is worth doing that to your mental health. The bigger, more significant story was when my family decided to leave America and move to Canada. My wife was born in Canada coincidentally and never really lived here. Lived here as a kid for a couple of years, but was born to American parents who just happened to be here. So it had been floating around in the back of her head forever, like, oh, wouldn't it be fun to live in Canada? And I sort of laughed, like, haha, we're never doing that. But, there we were living in very expensive Seattle, trying to make ends meet with a house that constantly needed some sort of repair, grinding away, sitting in traffic for hours every day, just feeling like, man, we are not getting anywhere. Meanwhile, dropping our kids off at school every day, wondering if it was the last day we were ever going to see them, because, was our school next? And through a number of, local, national, global events, we finally just went, that's enough. This is not what we are here for. There's a better opportunity out there. And this was in the middle of COVID. So my wife had lost her job. I was totally burned out on my job. And we just went, let's just take a leap. You were talking about this recently. Take a leap. There's got to be something better out there. We have to jump and hope that the net appears. And that leap was do some research, figure out what works, what looks like it's going to be a good fit for us. Went to literally the house 2 doors down from where I am today, lived there for a month and fell in love with this community. I'm surrounded by mountains. I'm surrounded by nature. I absolutely love this place. But we decided in that house, that's enough. We can't live like that anymore. We need to build a life of intention and not one that we just sort of stumbled into. And it took 6 months of planning, selling our house, getting rid of everything we owned, and, jumping in a U-Haul and crossing the border. But, and nightly crying in my kids' bedrooms, trying to get them to sleep and just, worrying, am I making the right choice? I'm ripping them away from their family, ripping them away from everyone they know, everything they've ever known. Is it going to be worth it on the other side? And every morning I wake up and I look outside and go, oh my God, yes. Like every day is an absolute gift because it's one that we built. It's something that this is the life we want to live. And our kids are thriving. Like we're doing great. Again, happiest, healthiest I've ever been. All because I made this huge decision to just go, everything you know is done. Start over. And I have zero regrets about it. So recognizing those boundaries, recognizing when like, this is just not worth it anymore. I got to do something else. I got to say no to things. I don't think I've ever made that choice about anything and regretted it.
Where are you in Canada?
I'm about an hour and a half east of Vancouver in a small town called Chilliwack. I'm literally surrounded by mountains on 3 sides.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's beautiful.
We talked about a lot today. Because you've been on the show before, I'm not going to ask you what trust and believe means to you, but I definitely want to ask each of you, like, if you can give people a lesson in just like transitioning into a better place, because clearly both of you have done that. Like, what would that message be? We'll start with Zach.
I probably sound like a broken record talking about this, but it's, a couple of things, being really curious about who you are and looking at your own beliefs and really trying to sort out which ones are limiting beliefs. We were all programmed at early age with all these beliefs, these things like men don't cry, men aren't emotional. And it hurts to look at these things inside of your brain. Like so many nights spent crying, just thinking about this one thing that I believed about myself that I had to question. I had to ask myself, what if it's wrong? What if I'm not right about this? So being okay, being comfortable with being wrong about something, and really looking at those beliefs that we really do hold dear, because we will protect them. We will keep them really close. But what if they're wrong? What if they're holding you back? What if that's the one thing that's like preventing you from taking that next step and the 3 steps and the 10 steps to being really happy and healthy? That's the one thing I really want to encourage people is get super curious about what you believe, what you're thinking, and really do, like, as unbiased as you can, ask yourself, what if this is wrong? What if there's another truth that's going to serve me better? And, a lot of times you'll come back and you'll say, you know what? No, this is the right truth. This is what I believe, and I like this, and this is good. But every now and again, you're going to find that little thing that's just going to 360 degree your life. So just be okay with that. Be okay with it. Be comfortable with it, because it's a little painful. But on the other side of that pain is just so much joy and happiness.
Love that. Jeremy?
I think taking the next step in that process, and it's something I work with people on all the time. I get asked all the time, what do you think would happen would it work if I tried every time I tell them, you got to just try. We can sit here and guess and wonder all day long. And in 3 or 6 or, 12 weeks, when we're still guessing and wondering, you could have tried 6 different ways to do it and found out which one it was that was going to work. So just wonder less and try more. You can't let the what ifs get in the way. You got to just try stuff and throw things against the wall, and something's going to stick and it's going to work and it's going to blow your mind. And I would so much rather, I tell my kids this all the time, you are going to regret the things you don't try 100 times over the things that you do and fail. Like, you got to just try things no matter what it is. Give it a shot.
I always say, like, if you ask yourself what if too many times, you're reminding yourself that you're staying stagnant. You're wanting to change, but you're not doing anything to change. You're just questioning the change. So what if more than once, as a reminder that you're not taking action on doing something to make even a small change. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for coming back on the show. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's such a thrill to be here.
Yeah, it's so fun.